Turning to our special report right now on the rule of law and following the law, which Donald Trump refuses to do. The FBI searched Trump's Florida home because they said Trump was illegally holding top secret property and had violated lawful orders to return it. And a judge agreed. And then, as everyone now knows, that search unearthed some of that very property, which they said he was illegally holding and illegally refusing to provide back under subpoena. So that's bad for Trump. His actions, though, are separate legally from whether he intentionally committed a new felony there. It may turn out that, as far as the Justice Department's concerned, they subpoenaed the material, they view Trump's lawyers as violating the order around that, and that they went back into his house primarily to just get the material. And we know the Attorney General said they had already tried less intrusive means and then only went in because Trump was not complying.
The department does not take such a decision lightly. Where possible, it is standard practice to seek less intrusive means.
That's true. And Garland was basically telling Trump in public that Trump brought the search on himself by all that time refusing to comply. He had well over a year to return the material in general. He had many weeks after it was subpoenaed. He didn't comply at all. That is striking because, remember, it is conservatives and many Trump allies who have been so quick to lecture you and Americans everywhere, whenever this has come up in the past, how if law enforcement asks you to do just about anything, then you have to go ahead and just comply.
Just comply, please. Listen.
I don't know why the gentleman did yield when he was asked to yield.
Those are Trump allies telling, in those cases, victims of police brutality they should comply and yield. Why didn't you yield? And that's not any kind of just couple isolated examples. It is a standard piece of conservative refrains in these clashes over law enforcement and policing, including when people are documented as innocent or did nothing wrong or are facing very aggressive or even illegal police treatment. The line we hear over and over is just follow the officer's commands and comply no matter what.
If, in fact, a police officer gives you a command, please exit the car, you should say, yes, officer, no, officer, okay, officer.
I wish he would have complied a whole lot earlier.
Bad decisions by a cop, but those decisions wouldn't have been made if the perp didn't run away.
Just comply, please. Listen.
Yeah, just comply. This frequent conservative claim goes well beyond complying with lawful police requests. I mean, listen to what we just heard. The demand is comply first, fully, no matter what. Yes, officer. Make any objections that may come up, presumably later. And this logic, this argument, this talking point has come from conservatives over and over. So I'm showing you some stuff that's on air, but this is in communities around America. Minnesota has a police union representative, Brian Peters, who in that Daunte Wright case, who was killed by an officer mistakenly drawing a gun, said, well, still, they should have just complied. And he argued that it was the non-compliance that set off the chain of events that led to the death. Houston Police has a union, and they had a similar take when they said, quote, comply, don't die, live to have your day in court. Those are real examples. And that includes times where police were later found to make mistakes or have, according to court, used excessive force, sometimes even on tape. But that loud, stubborn, and often smug lecture comes from national political elites on the right and MAGA leaders and Trump allies, all the way down to those police unions I mentioned. Comply. That's even when innocent people were injured or beaten or killed. That's a context here for the recent legal problems for Trump because, again, this sometimes gets almost pushed out. There's so much going on, and that's why it's our special report right now, because I want everyone to understand Donald Trump was given months to comply, but he didn't. And Trump aides who've been given special, careful, elite treatment when asked to follow the law and testify have benefited from that whole different approach. There are Trump officials, though, who partially resisted, and there are others, especially for the January 6th committee, who fully resisted. No compliance. And I want to be clear, we're talking about Donald Trump and other powerful, well-connected white people who have acted like they are above the law And their own past demands, some of which I just showed you, are really not about the rules. They're just telling others to comply. And many of those other cases involve regular citizens who don't have political connections and who are disproportionately black and brown people in America. So this is a documented double standard. Lawless resistance for these Trump elites, regimented compliance, or violence for regular citizens, and especially regular citizens who are black and brown. And before I go any further, let's bring it together. We try to be clear here, and we try to be as factual and clear as possible. This is the same premise which animated all those Trump fans on January 6th. They genuinely expected to go in and break the law. They genuinely seemed to operate with immunity, to feel immune because of their privilege and worldview, and they brutally attacked police because they never cared about police or blue lives to begin with. Now, there are some people that day and the days after in America who were actually surprised by the Trump fans that day. Or some said, gosh, this is hypocritical given the past talk of blue lives. You know who wasn't shocked? All the MAGA people doing those crimes. Because that's what they came to do. And you know who else wasn't shocked? Their leader, who at the time was trying to lead a failed coup that was thwarted. Donald Trump was not shocked. He was elated, excited, juiced up. And he saluted them and called them special in real time. Because all those people together, who many of them hadn't met before, they already knew about this. If you were surprised or someone you know was surprised, then someone you know was taking the blue lives talk at face value. But it was crap. And they all knew it was crap because it was about power and dominance and race. And those people view the law as a way to enforce a right-wing white supremacy. And if they can't get the police to do that, which apparently they couldn't on the steps of the Capitol, then they have little use for it. And that's the deeper, more disturbing context for what we're living through right now, which I guess is surprising to some people. So let it not be surprising anymore. You have to see facts before you can fix facts. That's the disturbing context for this seemingly habitual political hypocrisy around the lawful search of Donald Trump's home.
The FBI raid of President Trump is a complete abuse and overreach of its authority.
The way our federal government has gone, it's like what we thought about the Gestapo.
This is absurd. Think about it. This has been a witch hunt for 6 years.
What they've been doing to President Trump is political persecution.
It is Joe Biden's DOJ, and they have weaponized this FBI at every turn.
If you're a Republican conservative and you hear the FBI is going after Trump again, it sounds alarm bells.
Alarm bells. Well, alarms are for emergencies. If there are alarms here, I can tell you the response to people connected to Trump who have not been complying has been at a very slow, careful, sensitive pace. Take two of Trump's former White House aides who refused to comply with lawful subpoenas, Bannon and Navarro. Well, they've had plenty of time. Bannon had weeks between refusing to comply and being held in contempt, another month until he was indicted in November. And even in a dispute over non-compliance, I want you to understand, legally, the Justice Department still arranged to give Mr. Bannon the opportunity to come in voluntarily, which he did. Now, Peter Navarro spoke openly about his efforts to overthrow the election, which brought legal scrutiny on him. He put out a book, he did interviews. Only after all that did Congress subpoena him in February. Then, when he did not comply, he was held in contempt in April and indicted months later in June. Now, after all that, unlike Bannon, the DOJ did not try, perhaps because they are not naive, they did not try to get him to come in voluntarily. Similar to the legal process for Trump, where you have to go to a judge, the DOJ determined Navarro was not legally trustworthy. That's not an opinion. There's actually a standard for that. So they asked a judge to approve what was the less intrusive approach. And that left Mr. Navarro outraged, rattled, and seemingly experiencing something that he did not think could happen to him.
Former advisor Peter Navarro is at this hour in federal custody.
He was issued a subpoena in February to produce documents and appear before the committee in March, but refused to do either.
What did they do? They intercepted me getting on the plane. And then they put me in handcuffs. They bring me here. They put me in leg irons. They stick me in a cell. That's punitive. That what they did to me today violated the Constitution.
They did put him in handcuffs. Handcuffs are part of getting arrested, just like going into the cell before an arraignment. Now, Mr. Navarro then went on Fox News with those same complaints I just showed you, which is the same place where viewers had been lectured so many times on how to avoid exactly those problems with police. Just say, yes, sir, yes, officer, and comply.
If, in fact, a police officer gives you a command, please exit the car, you should say, yes, officer, no, officer, okay, officer.
That's not how Navarro sounded when dealing with law enforcement or the officers of the subpoena, nor Bannon, nor Trump, who's going well beyond the Hannity standard of yes, officer, and currently threatening retaliation. But you could say, right, what's the context? What's the history? Those clips are from those reactions to police incidents with black Americans.